Mystic Quest for the Game Boy was wicked. Free exploration, satisfying combat, a leveling system, and best of all, you can kill the townspeople. What? If you've never heard of Mystic Quest before, don't worry, you're not alone. Even those that know the name are usually thinking of Mystic Quest Legend for the Super Nintendo. Even though it's not a game that too many people seem to remember, it received a remake on the Game Boy Advance in 2003, and yet another one in 2008 for some Japanese mobile phone platform. The 2003 variant isn't just a simple port though, it's an enhanced remake, unifying features that were introduced in Seiken Densetsu 3 and Legend of Mana. The remake still follows the path that was laid out in the original, but it adds so much useless sh**. It still follows the story from the original, but a big heaping pile of sh**. It follows the path that veterans are familiar with from the original. Is it safe now? Look, I'll be honest. They just added stuff for the sake of adding stuff. Yes, you can play as the heroine now. And the plot will have a few minor differences. It's like Resident Evil 2's A and B scenario without the cause and effect mechanic. It's not fun. As soon as you start a new game, Mystic Quest throws a boss fight at you. It's literally the very first thing you do. Holy fuck, just look at the size of that thing. I ain't got no 3D gear to get behind him, man. Oh, my sword is twice my size as well? Alright then. In Sword of Mana it's the first fight as well, but we gotta sit through 15-20 minutes of text-based cutscenes first. It's Square Enix after all. After that first battle, things switch up quite quickly between the two games. In the original, Wooly dies. In Sword of Mana, he doesn't need to die. The intro already established Hero's motivation, which is to avenge his parents, of course, by killing Dark Lord. So, Wooly, what will you do with your newfound life now? Of course, you'll just stay in the prison until the end of the game anyway. Yeah, makes total sense to me. In both games, following your prison break, you fall down. You actually fall down quite a lot in this game, like a lot. In the original, you immediately move on to meet the heroine. But on the GBA we're treated to yet another cutscene, this time introducing Niccolo. If you've played Legend of Mana, you know him, you know he's annoying, you know he's useless, nobody wanted to see him ever again. Yet, here he is. Once that is done, you finally get to meet the heroine. I think I should get this out of the way now. Each and every single NPC that joins you, in both games for that matter, are lobotomized twats. A few of the available NPCs in Mystic Quest at least have useful ask commands. In fact, each character has their own unique ask commands, some being more useful than others. The heroine, for example, has a cure spell which acts like regen. Ask commands can be used infinitely and they don't even have restrictions on usage. Actually, wait a second. You can heal infinitely. And you let your friend die right in front of you at that. Doing fucking nothing. The fuck's the matter with you, woman? Well, I guess good old... What's his face again? Good old Hasim here probably didn't ask. Playing the hero in Sword of Mana, you'll never even hear about Hasim. Same as with Willy being dead or alive, Hasim's existence serves no purpose at all. After meeting the heroine, the route is split up again between the two games. You're now forced to traverse through Topple to get to anywhere, really. There's no way around this town. Originally, this town was completely optional, you never had to set foot in it if you didn't want to. Here, you go to Cats to take a break. Here, you have to go to the Banquet Hall because of some fucking off-limits construction work boulder roadblock bullshit. Fucking what? It's at the Banquet Hall in Sword of Mana that you're introduced to Julius for the first time, although you don't actually know his name yet, so pshh. Moving on. Here you go to the Marsh Cave to get the mirror to have that guy show his true colors. Here, you don't. Instead, you just go through Marsh Cave later. Of course, always accompanied by even more useless dialogue. Here, you go adventuring. Here, you watch another dream flashback sequence. Here, you go exploring. Here, you're hammering the buttons to make the conversation stop. Here, you're fucking free. Well, in this game, you just herd it to the next checkpoint, like cattle. Huh. Quite the analogy for Square's customer base today, isn't it? Contrary to all of that, I'm in no way against story. I spent the majority of my childhood all the way into my 20s playing RPGs. I know what a good story can do to a game like this. The original game's story was already stupid though. Everything about it was stupid, but it was kept at such a minimalistic level that it didn't matter. All I cared about as a kid was, how the fuck do I get over there? Yeah, I gotta rescue the girl and save Mana and blah 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 blah, but how the fuck do I get there? Sword of Mana doesn't fix anything that wasn't up to par in Mystic Quest, it just builds shit around it. My last point about the story in Sword of Mana, I don't remember anything that was added. I know it was there and I know it was long, but I don't remember anything the character said or did. In fact, I don't even remember what the moon mirror was used for, without looking through a playthrough footage first. I can roughly outline each story point in Mystic Quest, but in Sword of Mana it's all just fluff. All of it is just long, drawn out. You know what, I'll just stick with that word. It's fluff. Mystic Quest's map is a large square grid comprised of a lot of smaller squares. Each of the small squares represent one screen. This allows you to always see the entirety of your surroundings and is a concept ripped straight out of the original Zelda. You'd think this would make it easy in terms of navigation, but a lot of the screens, while showing 4 screen edges that could be traversed, tend to have roadblocks such as mountains or water which cannot be crossed. So you'll end up running around like a headless chicken trying to find a way to get to the other side of that screen. Your first time around, it's very impressive. You're actually exploring and finding your way around things on a Gameboy in 1991. That really was impressive. Even though you had a rough map and you could see everything available on that screen at any given time, you were still tasked with finding the way from point A to B yourself. In Sword of Mana, navigation has been designed in tune with what is now the norm in the series, which means that screens now scroll and you're exploring a much richer environment. Which is good. I mean, it's what you expect from a remake, to utilize the technological advancements that arose since the release of the original. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. It never is. In stark contrast to Mystic Quest, you're no longer exploring, you're being channeled from point A to B. Sword of Mana is extremely linear, and while you have side quests that can be accepted, they tend to be wild goose chases or monotonous fetch delivery quests. Mystic Quest enforced exploration of space, as limited as it was. You had no real idea where to go, so you just followed the paths that were available and familiarized yourself with your surroundings. All the while finding hidden entrances and opening up locked doors. All of this has been stripped away in Sword of Mana. You're just running along a pre-built pipe, but never veer off to the sides. When it comes to freeform exploration, I'm pretty confident comparing this aspect in Sword of Mana with Final Fantasy 13. Okay, fine. Sword of Mana isn't that bad. At the time, Square was still figuring out how to bastardize their successful games to what you know them as today. But anyway, to counteract this missing element, a day and night cycle was added. This system was first introduced in Seiken Densetsu 3. In Sword of Mana, it features several variations of any given day: dawn, early morning, morning, noon, afternoon, dusk, night, and late night. On top of that, you have 7 different days: Lunar Day, Salamander Day, Undine Day, Dryad Day, Jin Day, Gnome Day, and Mana Holy Day. If you do the math, every screen in the game exists in 56 different variations. Once again, sounds impressive, doesn't it? Let's scale this down to reality and look at what this system really means for the player. The screen immediately south of Gaia's Facade's entry has a few enemies here that keep respawning the same over and over. Every so often their positioning changes when they spawn, but it's always the same group of enemies. It turns out you can break the game as soon as you get here. On Mana Holy Day exclusively and only during daytime, a light Cyclops has a very small chance of spawning, replacing the group of small fry you've been dispatching for the last couple of hours trying to fight that bastard. Killing him is a waste though, as you can level up all your magic spells up to level 30 and above in a matter of mere minutes. Well, I say minutes, but you gotta deduct the time that it takes to recharge your MP once you've depleted your stock. Oh, hurry up. The same works for weapons too, but it takes a bit more finesse, as 1 to 2 hits from him can send you back to the title screen immediately. Remember the number I threw at you a little earlier? 56? That's a lot of variations to go through, and frankly, visiting the same screen 56 times to make sure you've not missed anything should be more than enough. And that's overkill already, especially on a fucking handheld. That isn't the case though, since he only has a small chance of spawning. In my case, I already knew the exact place and time that he will show up in, and it still took me 2 hours to make him appear. How are you supposed to find him under normal circumstances? Am I supposed to kill the same enemies for 2 hours and repeat that 56 times for every screen in the game? Fine, let's say I got unlucky and the average spawn sits at 30 minutes. That's still 28 fucking hours. This is not just an issue coming in from an angle of power leveling, but it severely affects people who want to 100% complete the game as well. I'm getting ahead of myself though. Let's move on to something a bit more fun. Combat in both games is really satisfying, although the AI of enemies is everything but. Attacks feel impactful, but enemies can and will ruin your day. In both games you're decked out with a variety of weapons, but in Mystic Quest the majority of weapons serve more than simply trashing the enemies. The axe can be used to cut trees, the sickle to cut foliage, the chain can be used to hookshot you across gaps in water, and the Morning Star replaces the need to keep buying mattocks. In Sword of Mana you can use the sword and the axe to cut grass. No, I'm serious. Of course the chain still crosses gaps, but that's it. In fact, the axe no longer serves a purpose in terms of progression in Sword of Mana, thus it is received so late in the game, chances are you won't ever be using it. Some of the new additions to the weapon roster are more interesting in terms of combat viability though. My personal favorite are the gloves, Hadouken! The other new weapon is the bow, which of course has been a staple ever since Secret of Mana. The bow is too much. It even hits twice at close range, dealing full damage for each individual hit. And thanks to a combination of range and the somewhat stupid enemies, this is hands down the best weapon in the game. Lure an enemy behind any old obstacle like some trees. Go to the other side of said trees and keep firing away. The enemy AI cannot go around it. They lock onto you in a straight line, and that's the exact direction they will try to advance to. On the other hand, in Mystic Quest enemies don't even seem to care about you. Most of them move around randomly. If you happen to cross their paths, well, they will attack. There are very few enemies that will actively hunt you down. The process might be different for the two games, but the result is still the same. Badly designed enemy AI. Magic in both games is kinda dull. In the original you get Cure, it cures you, you get Fire, you burn stuff, literally what you see is what you get. In Sword of Mana we get reunited with the 8 spirits that, once again, have been a fixture ever since Secret of Mana. Each spirit has 2 different functions, one being a support type spell and another to attack enemies. Just tapping R will execute the support type spell, while holding the button until you hear a little audio cue will initiate the attack spell. Interestingly enough, magic is augmented by the weapon you have currently equipped. The bow, for example, allows you to lob your magic in a very similar fashion an arrow would. The range you get still isn't all that far though. With the gloves, a martial arts type weapon, you shoot out small beams of energy that you can control and hit several targets multiple times with, which is kinda cool. It really isn't that bad a system considering you can activate it via a button press rather than having to click yourself through your inventory for another half an hour, but it's still nowhere near as fun as physically whacking away on enemies. Before we leave the battle system, we still have to, at least quickly, assert the special attacks gauge. At a quick glance, it seems to be almost identical in both games, where the only difference seems to be the way it's charged. In Mystic Quest it fills over time, whereas in Sword of Mana it fills up with each attack you land on an enemy. In Mystic Quest you always use your gauge with each attack. This means every single time you attack the bar is emptied and starts filling up again. Yet, if you attack while the bar is full, a special, unique to the weapon you have equipped will activate. The sword, for example, can either swoosh across the room or spin, kind of. The axe and lance will be thrown just like Watts does, and so on. The last interesting trait the special attack bar in Mystic Quest holds is its effect on magic. With a full bar you get to quadruple your damage output. Sword of Mana's special bar only applies to weapons, but at least the visuals for some of the special attacks look really cool. Near the beginning of the game you receive Poi Poi's notebook from Niccolo, which also includes bestiary. Bestiary are always nice additions to RPGs, especially when they're recording extra information on the enemies you've killed. The bestiary in Sword of Mana shows you how the enemies become aware of you, be it through smell, vision or hearing, which by the way means absolutely fucking nothing to the player. It also shows you their stats and most interestingly, how many of them you've killed. I didn't know this back in the day, but after killing 999 of any enemy, that enemy will now be black and is much stronger than before. Please keep your racist jokes to yourself, will ya? Every single stat that monster originally had receives a bonus of 100 points, while its HP get a bonus of 500 points. Again, similar to the day and night system, this sounds really cool at first, but of course it isn't. I've spent about 2 hours to turn those rabbits black. There are 119 different monsters in this game, some of which can take ages to spawn even just once, as I've already mentioned. Let alone farming those a solid 1000 times to then still be at the mercy of the game's RNG to have that monster spawn again to farm its new shade. On top of that, the reason you want them to turn black is so that you can farm crystals in Altinafell, which allow you to forge all of the best equipment in the game. Every black enemy, and I mean literally each and every single one, has a 1 in 25 chance of dropping a crystal. By that logic, there is no point to turn any enemy black by the rabbits I just turned. They are the weakest black enemies in the game, and I even leveled up my gloves to 99 while farming the 8 crystals I wanted. I now have everything I need and there's no reason to turn any other enemy black, apart from my OCD that is. If I wanted a complete save, you know, what I'd call 100%, the amount of time I would have to invest is ridiculous, and worst of all, there's no point to it as I can get everything I need from the absolute weakest enemy already. Oh, and bosses are a joke. I don't know how you would classify this, but to me this falls right under annoying shit. You probably thought I just showed you the finale of the Lich fight earlier, didn't you? I've played through the entire game all the way up to the entrance of Dime Tower, not touching the Forge and Temperance listing even once. And almost all of the bosses died way too quickly. Now I have all my crystal gear and it's not even fun anymore. This game has no super bosses and the black enemies are tougher to kill, sure, but they're not actually different enemies, they're just a bit beefier. In the end I've been left wondering what the upgrade system is actually meant for. It's not like in Legend of Mana where no future mode will literally rip out your balls and feed them to you, if you aren't sufficiently prepared. There's just no reason for a smithing system to be in this game. Just because all the other recent mana games did it doesn't mean you can just fling it into the mix without designing the fucking game around it. So if we summarize, you might never even see some of the enemies unless you explicitly know where and when they show up, meaning if you'd really want to complete your bestiary, you'll have to spend roughly 1000 years of grinding. And we also concluded that upgrading your weapons works detrimental towards your gaming experience. So why is all this stuff in here? There's no post-game, and once you enter Dime Tower, you've crossed the point of no return anyway. Why is all this shit in this game for no reason at all? It certainly makes the game look big when it isn't. Sword of Mana is a very short game, just like the product it was based on, but it's lengthened through inane side quests of which 90% don't do anything for you, and then there's farming enemies to fight black versions of those enemies to farm the materials necessary to craft the best equipments in the game that you can't even fully utilize in any way due to a missing endgame and a plethora of pushovers disguised as bosses. And if all of that wasn't enough, the game used to search every fucking nook and cranny of the calendar cycle to look for extremely rare spawning enemies until your fucking mind turns to mush. You know what this reminds me of? Final Fantasy X, the Unfun Edition. Was it fun to catch 10 of each monster? No, it fucking wasn't. Was the payoff worth it? Abso-fucking-lutely. You wanted to see which rare items you're going to receive for clearing a species or an area. You wanted to see what other souped up monster is going to show up next and what you would get for beating that monster. And when you were finally done with the monster arena, you still had the Dark Aeons and Penance to fight. In Sword of Mana, there is no reward system in place for you. Yes, you did all the grinding it offers, but what for? In fairness, Mystic Quest didn't have any optional end or post-game content either, but it also never pretended something might happen. In Sword of Mana, you're led to believe there's more given how powerful you can become early on. If I can create this extremely overpowered equipment now, there has to be some sort of greater challenge out there for which I'll need it, right? No, there isn't. Here are a few more annoyances I came across. Why does money max out 1 coin short of 100k? Yes, that was the limit on the Gameboy, but look at how much fucking space there's left now. Why is there a ring that boosts all stats by 50-fucking-5 when you're way too powerful already? Why is there a system for enemies to become aware of you, but as a player you never even experience this? Why is it never explained how the fucking hothouse works? Why is there no proper map like in the original that clearly indicates where you are? Just because I'm riding a fucking train that can't be veered off its path doesn't mean I don't want to know what the layout of the environment looks like I'm in. Why is there no guidance on how the class system works? Why do I have to hand out 15 fucking flyers on a side quest? Why is handing out those flyers harder than figuring out the last boss? And for the life of me, I cannot figure out why the ability to jump was integrated. Just look at this shit, it's ridiculous. There's no reason this was integrated other than to make you think you got stuck. Its necessity is so rare throughout the entire game that you keep forgetting you even have it. The fact that it handles so poorly doesn't really encourage any further use either. Finally, and this is more of a story-related issue in regards to its visual representation, the whole premise of this game is surrounded by a religious conflict, and the current state of affairs has the Mana believers at the mercy of Dark Lord and his empire. Why are there huge golden statues of the Mana goddess placed everywhere? But they're just save points brought over from Seiken and Densetsu 3. No! They are a part of the environment. This is even mentioned right at the beginning of the game. Which leads me to, why are they in Grants? The big bad guy, Dark Lord, has these statues of the Mana goddess standing around in his yard? Really? There are so many more things I can't wrap my head around when it comes to the design choices that were made. But I'll stop now. All in all, Sword of Mana didn't really stand the test of time. The game was well received at the time of its release, but today it's just clunky. So should you play both? Frankly, if you're interested at all, I'd advise you to just play Mystic Quest instead. You still get the same story without the hours upon hours of badly written JRPG tropes, and as an added bonus, you will get to experience the very first entry in the Seiken and Densetsu series. Trust me, it's a better bonus than having experienced the weakest of the bunch. The one thing I do admire about Sword of Mana is that it kept the hero's body count almost the same as it did in the original, and even better, he's aware of it in this one.